Obviously, last week brought us Old Dominion here to town and tested our toughness quotient last week, and we failed. But we spent some time enhancing that here this week. We've had a good couple of days of practice. Had a very intense practice today, and I think the unique thing about our team right now, as you look at them, and the thing I'm fond of them for is the fact that when you walk into our practice on any given day, you'd have a tough time knowing what our record is. Whether it's good or bad, they practice the same way the entire time, and that's something I'm excited about because they work just as hard today as they have when we took over. And they've got the same sort of eagerness in their eyes, the same sort of ambition to continue to try to improve and get better, and that's encouraging, because they continue to come in here and work every day, and it makes you excited as a coach knowing you're accomplishing something within them. Ultimately, they'll be able to turn those things into some wins here, hopefully here, as we roll down the home stretch of our schedule. It's been challenging for us up to this point. We're aware of that, but the kids hadn't quit fighting. We fought through some injuries. We fought through some illnesses. We've been manhandled. We got manhandled Saturday by Old Dominion on the glass. So we got out rebounded significantly the other day for the first time all season. So we learned from that too, but we're continuing to grow. So it's not taking our joy from coaching. We're enjoying coaching this bunch, and they're working hard, and I'm proud of the effort they're putting forward. I think we challenge them in practice. They challenge each other. I think for the most part, we'll incorporate some drills that force you to be tough, whether it's rebounding drills or drawing charges or getting on the floor after loose balls and things that make you compete to survive a little. I'm not talking about living. I'm just talking about surviving on the floor. And then I think one of the things we do is we show them themselves on film, and I think that brings out the inner competitor in all of them. Once they see themselves on film, they come in and try to work hard to make sure those things don't happen again and try to do what they can in practice to enhance their ability to be tougher. And we're asking a lot out of, 4 or 5 freshmen to come in and be tough right away against some grown men like we played against Saturday, and they just weren't ready for that. And then we'll grow, we'll continue to learn. Milos will get tougher, Bryant Thomas will get tougher, Luka will get tougher, Ryan Murphy will get tougher, even though he had a great day shooting the ball. All these freshmen were asked to come in and be grown-ups all of a sudden in a difficult, challenging situation. And so we'll continue to do that in practice. I think we find that in practice, and then we learn from our game performances and hopefully build on that the next day in practice. Well, I think it is. It remains what it was, and it's continued to grow. Obviously, it was the ability to make shots and stretch the floor for us. Shot the ball extremely well the other day and made some huge shots for us. We see that every day in practice. It's something that we're used to. I'm just glad he's able to carry it over to the floor in game performance. The performance he had the other day was incredible. 6 of 6 from the three-point line, very efficient, had a couple assists, was pretty good defensively, not great, but I think it helped him as much as anything because he's worked at it. Nobody works any harder than he does. Nobody on our team has put up any more shots than he has. So he earned the right to be successful out there. Now, for us, the challenge is making sure that everybody steps forward on on a day when John Davis has 38, not many other people show up. On a day when Ryan Murphy scores 27, John scores 14, we didn't have much help inside. So our challenge is to make sure we have, and you look on the other side of the roster, or on the other side of the lineup, and Old Dominion has 4 starters in double figures. So that's where we've got to be better. We've got to make sure on a night when Ryan's having a night like that we're getting supplements from the inside. We're getting our post players rebounding the ball like they should, and we're getting points from Najee, and we're getting Austin to be productive. And that's what we're still challenged to do, is to make sure on any given night it's not just Murph, or it's not just JD, or it's not just Jalen. It's everyone collectively making us successful. Andrew's back, practiced this week, and looks fantastic. Looks like he's had 2 weeks off, which there's a point of time when we all might need that, but he looks fresh and his thumb looks good. He shot the ball extremely well, so he sort of hit the ground running for us, and we need for him to. I would love to have had him on that trip to Florida when we didn't. We needed one more scoring option down there, and we certainly need one more scoring option, going day to day, and he's a guy that brings a lot of toughness to us. He's probably our toughest guy, overall, and so we yanked that out of the lineup in addition to his 18 points. It has an adverse effect on us, but we are glad to have him back. And we did, as we've talked about, the 5 home games we've had are the 5 top teams in the league, and that's not an excuse. That's just reality. It is, and we're taking a young team in and having to compete with these people. Now, I thought for the most part, for the Marshall game, the Western Kentucky game, we were competitive, and we put ourselves in a position to be successful down the stretch. Had we made some plays and a couple things gone our way, we were right there in both those games. Old Dominion, we didn't put ourselves in a position in the second half to be successful. We worked our way back from a deficit early, and we're down 6 at halftime. But we got 3 of our post players to get 3 fouls in the first half. half, and the second half they go on a 15-3 run to open up the second half, and it put it out of distance for us because of the way we're playing right now. And without Andrew, we're limited offensively. But now to get him back and to go against a team like UAB, who's going to be seething a little bit after lost at San Antonio this past weekend in a game where San Antonio hit 15 threes against them and played really well offensively. They're a very talented team. They've got two grown men on the inside too, and Chris Coakley and William Lee, who are fantastic. And Nick Norton's back at the point guard for them, who's a guy they missed last year. A really good distributor, runs their team well. Nate Darling's a shooter on the perimeter that can make shots from just about anywhere. He's not just a shooter anymore. He really creates. They've got a freshman named Zach Bryant that's terrific for them too. So they're a very talented offensive team. They rebound the ball extremely well, and it's going to be a challenge for us. We played them. They ended our season last year in the conference tournament, a one-point game last year at the end of the season last year, in a game where we didn't score very much in the second half. Or I should say the second part of the first half, and still were in a position to win that game late. Had a shot to win that game at the end down there and didn't pull it off. So our kids will be excited about the challenge. And then obviously Middle Road's in here on Saturday, who has set the bar for our league for the last couple of years, continue to do so. They're 8-1 right now in conference play. They picked up Nick King at the 4 spot for him as a transfer from Alabama, who's going to be a contender for Player of the Year in our league. And of course they've got Giddy Potts back, who's in his 12th year at MTSU. So we'll be glad to see him out of there. He shoots the ball extremely well, and he's just a bulldog out on the floor. And they're good all the way around. They're obviously well coached, very disciplined, very structured. So it is a big challenge for us, but they're not going to feel sorry for us, and we don't need to feel sorry for ourselves. We're going to come out here and compete on Thursday, try to be the best we can Thursday, and then get Middle when they get here. It's interesting. One of the first teams I remember I was obviously older at the time. I'll not tell you how old I was, but in that '88 team, Byron Dinkins was one of the first basketball players I remember seeing for Charlotte when I first learned about Charlotte basketball, and I remember him being one of the most talented guards I ever saw play. I thought he was fantastic, and he led that team, and that team fed off him, his energy, his talent, the way he defended, the way he distributed, the way he scored it. Was a fantastic player here. He's turned into a terrific coach here in the area as well. So it'll be exciting to have that team back in there. And probably one of the little-known guys on that team was his backup, a guy by the name of Chris Baker. Chris played on that team back in that era too. And Chris, actually, I babysat Chris when he was a youngster back in my hometown. His grandfather ran the city park in our hometown, and I worked for the city during my summers, and my job was to watch Chris. And turns out Chris ended up being a point guard here at Charlotte, and we still remain good friends to this day. He always comes to our game when we play at Western Kentucky, so I see him there too. But he's a guy I've always been fond of, and that was actually the reason we came to the game, was to see Chris play, during that period of time, and got to see Byron Dinkins and Mr. West and Plonke and some of the other guys on that team that were instrumental in winning the Sun Belt Championship. You're right, and the great thing about that is the fact they've walked in every day with the right attitude. And I hope we've done, we talked about this early on in the process, the first couple of weeks. We spent our time working on their mental capabilities to make sure they believed in themselves and are confident in themselves, and regrowing that, because that needed to be recentered, because they had lost that confidence, even the ability to play hard. They had lost that somewhere along the way. So we spent the first couple of weeks getting that recentered. And they've stayed with that consistently. Now, they've not played the best. We've not competed the best. We've not been the best performing team on the floor. But we've been in the majority of our games. We've been in position to maybe win some of those games. And so they've really bought into what they're being taught right now, and they continue to work at it, and they continue to move forward. They see strides, because we take time to make sure, usually a lot of the teaching and film session goes on things that went wrong. We spend as much time on this film session on things that went right. So they see things that they could control, and that one of our missions has been, our messages has been, that the things that we're losing because of, or not winning because of, are all controllable. Whether it's box outs, or missed free throws, or not making shots, or turnovers that have led to 22 points like the other day against Old Dominion. Those are all things that we're under control of. And so they know those are things that are repairable. And the way they're working right now, I think they understand too, that they have opportunities to continue to be successful if they continue to work. So we're encouraging. Our practices are positive. We're driving them. We're pushing them. We're challenging them. But the great thing about them is they're young enough to still be impressionable. And I think we've got a good impression in our mind right now about what we want to become. And they know we're still working towards that. And we're not even halfway through our conference season yet. So they understand there's a lot of meat left on the bone as well.